Welcome to the second part of this 3-part tutorial series where we turn this scene into a cinematic masterpiece in Unreal Engine. In first part we covered how to correctly set up the project, gathering references, adjusting texture, material, basic lighting and essential pro tips. If you haven't watched that video, I highly recommend checking that out first. Link is in the description. In this part we'll work on set design, adding imperfections, dynamism, understanding cameras, camera angles, animation and high quality render settings. For those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. My name is Jay Parekh from IndiArt Visual Studios. We specialize in creating high quality cinematics, virtual environments, game assets and interactive VR art quiz. With that being said, let's jump right in and start creating. We left our scene at this stage. Let's see what we need to add or change in terms of set design. If you look at our references, we need to add this type of candles, TV. We need to add spotlight and tube light fixtures in here. We need to add this type of open lamps instead of this closed ones, so it could give nice glow and bokeh effects. So let's jump onto Fab. Log into your Fab account, search for lamp. In price, select free, and in format, select Unreal Engine. Always search for Unreal Engine compatible assets first. They will come with materials and textures ready to use. If you don't find what you need in UE format, then expand your search to other formats. I have selected these 4 assets. I will add their links down in the description. These 3 are UE assets. So for them, click on add to my library. Open Epic Game Launcher. Locate the asset and click on add to project. Search for the project and click on add to project. Do the same for the other assets. For this one, this asset is not available in 5.5. So we need to create a 5.4 project and add this asset into this new project. Now let's migrate this asset. For this TV, this one is in FBX format and we need to delete this base as well, as we will mount this TV on the wall. So we'll download this as an FBX. Right, let's open this up and extract it. Let's open up Maya. Let's import the FBX into Maya. Let's delete this. Let's apply a material. Let's check the UV as well. Let's export this as a TV. Let's create a new folder called assets and let's import the FBX. Okay, now we have all our assets in here. Let's start with adding our light fixtures. So let's go up here. Let's rotate it. And to position, let's copy the translation value and paste it in here. Move it up and scale it down. Okay, something like this. Let's paste this to all these places. Okay, I pasted all the lights in here. Let's change its material. Let's change the master material to give it a tint, and we'll apply the pro tip that we saw in the first chapter. Let's add divide node and eye adaptation. If you don't know about this method, I'll add a link of this pro tip down in the description. Let's apply this tint and increase the intensity. Okay, this is looking good. Let's add light fixtures in here as well. Let's add this light in here, rotate it and copy the values from here and move it upwards. It's just a rotation so that it matches with our wooden furniture, something like this. And let's change the tint as well. Let's create a material instance of this and apply this in here. Open up the material. Let's change the tint and intensity as well. Double check the master material. Let's paste this fixture in these 2 areas as well. Okay, this is looking good. Now let's change the lamp. For this, let's locate the lamp first. I will copy this name and in the content browser, paste it in here. Maybe it's BP lamp. Okay, it's in here. Okay, this one. Let's duplicate this so our original content does not get changed, and open it up. Let's go into the viewport. We have this two mesh. Let's delete it for now and add a static mesh. Let's find our lamp. It's in here. Let's add this lamp as it will match with our this concept. So select this, go into the blueprint, select the static mesh and click here. It will add like this. Let's move it up, something like this. Let's compile and save. And in here we should add a light bulb as well. I like this one, so let's select this, add another static mesh. Let's rotate this and move it up. Let's compile and save. You see this, our lamp's length is not as low as this one. So let's add a character first to get a reference of our height. Maybe this lamp is too low and this one is too high. So we will increase this one's length, but not as much as this. So let's add a static mesh again in here. Let's go into our modeling tool. In the meshes, select a triangle edit. Select all these points and move it down. Maybe this much is better. Hit on accept. So you see now our BP lamp also updated. Let's move the lamp and the lights down a little, or maybe let's move this up like this. Let's compile and save. Let's delete these two. To change all these lamps into our this updated lamp, here is a pro tip. Add the BP lamp that you want to update in our scene. Then select all the lamps existing lamp into our scene, right click on it and click on replace selected actor and click on our updated lamp. So all the lamps will be updated. Let's move all the lamps little bit upwards. So select all and move it up, something like this. And you might notice that there are some artifacts in here. So let's open up the BP lamp, go into viewport. And in our point light, we have soft radius for our soft shadows, but for our reflection, the value is at 0. So if we increase this to 50, our reflection will get smoother and we won't have that artifact. Let's add some candles as well. Okay, it's in here in candles, blueprints, and here, this one. Let's delete this character and add it in here. We can fix this artifacts by going into the post process and type in refractions and turn this off. Okay, much better. There are some options for flame, smokes, and etc. You can play around with this. Okay, maybe something like this. And let's add this throughout our scene. I have added candles throughout the scene. Now let's add a tube light in here to give some color separation with our teal color. So let's go into our lamp. We need to have longer tube light in here. So for that, let's duplicate this light, add it in here, move it up and backwards. And let's place it at maybe center of this pillar. And we need to stretch this, right? So let's go into the modeling. And in here, select this and extend. Something like this, maybe accept. And let's do center pivot. Let's go into Xform, edit pivot, center, hit accept, bring the tube light to center of this area. Okay, this is better, I guess. Let's apply this same material, maybe a little bit down. Let's add a area light in here. Let's copy translation value from here, paste it in here. Let's increase source height and width. Let's decrease the barn door angle and the barn door length as well. Let's give it a tint and adjust the intensity. Move it out a little. Yeah, something like this. And let's increase the length a little bit. Again, adjust the pivot. Yes, something like this would work. Let's duplicate it in here. Okay, something like this. Our scene is really coming together. Let's add a TV now. Maybe center of this wall. Let's increase the size just a little. Okay, this is better. Let's apply a black steel metal material to the border. When we downloaded the TV asset, we have this texture map for it. We will select base color, metallic, normal and roughness and import it into our project. Open up the metallic and roughness texture map and make sure in the default it is set to grayscale and this sRGB is untick. And in the normal map, we have selected this normal. Let's open up the material. This will be a simple material, nothing fancy. Let's select the textures and add it in here. Let's connect all these textures. Let's add a movie in here. For that, go into your project and open the content folder. In here, create a new folder called movies. It's important that you give exactly this name so that Unreal can pick it up, and paste your MP4 file or image sequence in here. Go back into your project and in the content folder, go into movies, right click, go into media and click on file media source. Let's call it fms underscore cafe. It's important to give correct naming convention. Let's select the path, select this, save and close. Let's create one more actor called media player. Click on this video output media texture asset, so it will create a texture map. Let's call it mp underscore cafe. Open it up and select this fms cafe. In here, click on loop, so it will play in loop. Save and close. Let's create a material map for this. Duplicate our m underscore emissive and call it m texture emissive. Open it up. And here, instead of tint, let's add a texture map. Delete this, convert it into parameter and call it texture. Let's create a material instance and apply it in here. Okay, it is applied. To play the movie, we need to create a movie level sequence. Let's go into my stuff, create a folder called sequence and name it sequence underscore one. Go into add and select the media track. In here, click on plus media source and select FMS cafe. And then right click on the track, go into properties and select the texture map. Select this one. Adjust the FPS. Video file is in 24 FPS, so I'll select that. And now let's play. It is playing up. Let's extend this. Right now our orientation is not correct, so let's open up the material instance. We don't have the tiling adjustment parameters in here, so let's add it. Open this up and add mf underscore tiling parameter. Plug it into UV. Apply and save. Now we have the tiling parameter. We can offset it, so let's move it down. Okay, this one is the correct scaling. Let's increase the intensity as well, like this. Okay, it is looking good. Now let's add a area light in here so that the TV emits light. Let's find the texture map and apply the same texture map into the source texture. And if we turn it on and off, you can see the light effect. Let's reduce it a little, something like 5, and let's play it through. I think 5 is also a little bit too high. Let's reduce it a little too. Okay, this is working. Let's close this for now. Now let's add some imperfections. If you notice in our spotlights, we have very uh, plain shape. It doesn't give any type of shape or anything. So one quick way to add shapes in spotlight is IES lighting. There are multiple ways to get IES lighting, but one pro tip to get a very nice IES lighting effect is we'll use this asset pack. It has some very nice animated IES lighting and shapes and etc. So let's click on add to my library. Click on this and hit accept, view in launcher, and find the asset pack. Click on add to project, search for the project. This IES lighting pack is not available in 5.5, so let's add this asset pack into our 5.4 project first. Open up that project and let's migrate this asset into our project. Here is our asset. Let's go inside. Let's go into lighting and profile. Here we have different types of profile. So let's select all our spotlights first. And let's apply this texture one by one into our IES profile texture like this. Let's increase the intensity a little to see the effect. Okay, after various experiment, I like this one the best. This is this texture map, right? The third number. And I set the intensity to 2. Now let's add some bloom effect in our scene. If we go into the post process, we have default bloom effect and bloom values. Let's increase the value to exaggerate. You see, when you increase like this, it increases overall brightness of the scene, and we can change this to convolution, and in here search for kernel and you can select this default bloom kernel. When you select it and let's increase the value, you can see you will get this type of bloom effect, but we can take this one step further and add an anamorphic bloom effect in our scene. So here is a pro tip to add anamorphic bloom effect in our scene. Download this texture map. I'll add the link down in the description. Open it up. It will look something like this. Change MIPGen setting to no MIPMap and make sure that never stream option is turned on. Save it. And I haven't created this texture map. The credit for this texture map goes to this channel called Flipside 3D. I'll add this channel's link down in the description. Check it out. It's a nice channel. Let's close this texture map and apply this texture map into our this slot, right? Let's decrease the effect. Okay, 0.15 is better. You see, now we have nice anamorphic bloom effect in our scene. Now let's add camera to our scene. The easy part is adding the camera itself. Just go here, click on cinematic and drag cine camera actor. Now the tricky part is figuring out the real world details to make the camera feel cinematic. Things like sensor size, aspect ratio, focal length, crop size, camera angles, framing, and camera movement. Here is a pro tip to gather all that information quickly. We can gather information on sensor size and resolution setting from a document called VFX Camera Database. The link is in the description. This document has information on many real-world cameras. Find the camera you want to mimic, go in there, and there will be information on its sensor width, height, and also resolution settings. Next, let's talk about aspect ratios. There are 3 common ones. 16:9 is used for standard widescreen, and vertical and square formats are used for social media. But these days, cinematic widescreen are very popular. We can use 2.33 for widescreen or 2.39 for anamorphic look. We need to add this value in our crop size section. For details like shot size, lens selection, framing, and camera movement, we'll use a resource from Studio Binder channel. They have detailed videos on all these topics. I'll give you a quick overview of all these concepts. Let's start with shot size. There are 9 different types of shot sizes. ranging from an establishing shot to an extreme close-up, and each has its own purpose. For example, an establishing shot or a wide-angle shot is great for the beginning of your video to help the viewer understand the environment. Full shots or medium shots work well for dialogue delivery, while the close-ups are perfect for highlighting a specific object or emotion. Next is lens selection. The lens you choose depends on the shot size. For an establishing or wide shot, you will want a wide angle lens with a low focal length. For close-ups, a macro lens with a high focal length works best to capture fine details. After this, you can work on camera angle to frame your scene. A commonly used concept for framing is the rule of thirds. According to this, your main subject should be placed at one of the 4 intersection points on the grid. After fixing the camera angle, you can move on to the camera movements. There are 15 different types of camera movements. For example, a pushing shot draws attention to a specific detail or emphasizes a moment, while a pull-out shot creates a sense of detachment, disconnecting the audience from the character or scene. Best for last or ending shots. A trucking or dolly shot moves the camera left or right to follow a character or to shift focus from one thing to another, while an arc shot orbits around the subject, keeping the focus centralized on the subject. Now let's apply all this information and concepts into our scene. For our first camera, I want to replicate a red dragon camera. So let's go in here, open this shit, and let's replicate this 4K format with 2:1 aspect ratio. So note down this value, select our camera, and in the source width and height, apply that value. So you see now our camera sensor size is converted into red dragon. As we learn, for the first shot, we want to do an establishing or wide angle shot with a wide focal length, maybe something like this. And let's go into this perspective and cinematic viewport. Let's select this grid so that we have this rule of third grid in here. So for now, let's adjust the camera angle to something like this. Now let's change the focus distance as well. So click on this and select this, and let's click on here. So we have our focus plane focusing on this part of the image. Just like this, I will replicate all the other camera angles and show you how I set it up. Okay, I have added all the camera angles in here. Let's go into them one by one. For demonstration purposes, I have used different type of cameras with different sensor size so that we can explore all the cameras. For the second camera, I used IMAX 70mm. Here, I select this. Then change the squeeze factor. By default, it would be 1, like this. So you see you have bokeh, circular bokeh effect in here. But we need an anamorphic view for this. So change this to 2 for this type of oval shape bokeh, right? And in this blade count, change from 7 to 12. The reason being, with a lower value, you will have this type of cutted bokeh effect, right? So for smooth bokeh shape, change this to 12 or maybe 16. So you will have smooth bokeh effect. 12 is good enough. After this, change the focal length. For different aspect ratios, you need to change focal length for different type of aspect ratios. So for this, the nice sweet spot was 110. And another thing is the current aperture. By default, it is 2.8, and you can decrease this to 1.2. The more lower the value, the more bokeh and background blur it will create. I would set it to something like 4, so we have nice balance between our blurred background image and the foreground. In the focus plane, click on this, and I have set the focus plane to this part. Jump to second camera. For this second camera, I have mimic Arri Alexa Mini. So I have copied this value and paste them in here, right? Then I change the blade count, also change the focus distance. For this, I want to use a medium shot. So I kept the focal length around 14, and for this the aperture is set to 1.2. Let's move on to our last camera angle, which is portrait format. This format is used for our social media contents. So for this, I selected this 16:9 DSLR and flip this values. So I put this in here, and the width I switch the value, and in the current squeeze factor, When you change it, by default it will create this type of vertical format, but I wanted the squared format, so I changed this to 2 and it gives this type of nice squarish format. I changed the blade count, also the focus distance, and because we changed this squeeze factor from 1 to 2, it gives circular bokeh effect to this type of oval. This will be our medium close-up shot, so change the focal length to 40, right? And we can change the aperture as well. If we set to the lowest value, it gives too much background blur. Always try to find a sweet spot. We don't want to exaggerate. Lastly, we have crop setting. This setting is useful to fix aspect ratio of all the cameras. For example, if we select our second number cameras and go in here, and we can select 2.39 for our anamorphic widescreen aspect ratio. If we select this, it will change from its current aspect ratio, maybe it's to 1.25 or anything, to our anamorphic widescreen aspect ratio. You can add a customized aspect ratio value in here as well. So for example, we see that there is a 2.35 aspect ratio for widescreen or any desired value. Let's now jump into camera movement. For that, I have prepared some camera animation based on our previous conversation. So let's jump to our first shot. I have done the arc movement like this. So earlier the focus is in here, then it shift to this signage. For second camera movement, we have the trucking or dolly movement from left to right with focus shift from this to our background element. To do the focus shift animation, you need to keyframe your focus plane. So earlier it is at here, and when it reaches to this point, it's still in here, but then it will animate from this place to the background place. Same way for the third camera angle, we have a push in shot like this, and for the last one we have the pull out shot with focus shift from here to our donut. Let me turn on the focus plane so it stays on the background till here, then it start to animate to the foreground element. Lastly, we need to add camera shake to our cameras. If we look at our animation, right now it is too smooth and too perfect. But in real life, the camera is handled by human or a machinery. So there are somewhat of camera shake imperfection. So we'll replicate that in our camera as well. Right click on your content browser, select blueprint class, expand this and search for camera shake. Select camera shake base, name it, open it up and close it, then open again. We have this option, select Perlin noise. We can add camera shake in location, rotation and FOV. We only want location and rotation. Expand timing and change the duration to 0 so that we don't have time constraint. Let's examine our coordinate system. If we select our camera, then we have X, Y, and Z. If this camera is held by human, then there are more movement in the Z axis. It could go more up and down or left to right, but there are very less chances that it would go back and forth in the X axis. So based on this, I have created a preset. So we have amplitude and frequency. Amplitude represents the strength of this camera shake, while frequency represents how many times it repeats. So I have kept frequency to 1, and in the strength Z value is higher, then there is a y value, and then the X value is very less. And this one is the overall amplitude and frequency combining all these three axes. So I have put 0.1 in the overall impact. Then in the rotation, same concept. If we expand our transform value and in the rotation, let's go into rotation. X axis is roll, Y axis is our pitch, and Z axis is our yaw. So it could move more to left and right, then it could move more to up and down and less to Z axis. So based on that, I have put higher value in the roll, then in the pitch for up and down movement, and the lowest value in our yaw. And same concept, we have overall amplitude value. Once these values are put, then you can go into your sequence, go into your camera, click on this add button, go to camera shake and select your BP camera shake blueprint, and you can expand this like this. So now if we go into our camera angle and see the effect, You see at the end we have very subtle camera shake movement. Let me exaggerate this effect a little bit to show you the difference. You see now it is moving too much. But we have to be careful. The key here is subtleness. We want very low camera shake because this one is not like a high speed or high chase camera animation. These are very simple motion. So add it with very much caution. We don't want to overdo it. When you set up this camera angle, by default it could look something like this. But I have added two another lights to highlight our subject. Let me show you how I did it. I have added one spotlight from this angle with orange color and one area light from this angle with our teal color. So when we look at from our camera view, it would look something like this, but both our lights affects the whole scene. We only want to affect our donut. So in earlier Unreal Engine version we would use our channel function, but in Unreal Engine 5.5 with our mega light feature this doesn't work. You see we selected the channel 1 in our donut object and both our lights are selected with channel 1, but it's not working. So here is a pro tip to enable the channel function in Unreal Engine 5.5. Search for mega lights in both our lights and disable the mega light function. Then our channel function will work in our Unreal Engine 5.5. Let's select this object. Its roughness is too high. In this camera angle, I have added one more light from this angle with our orange follow with same channel function. Before we move on to the render setting, there are some final adjustments that we have to make. In the post process, change the exposure value to 0.8 to make it a little bit darker. In our BP lamp, move down this point light a little. In our HDRI, reduce the intensity a little. And in our height fog, reduce this height fog density. In any of our camera angle, if any object is in between our frame, we can hide it in our sequencer. Open the sequencer, click on this add actor to sequencer and select the actor. Click on this plus and select actor hidden in game and untick this and give it a keyframe. And lastly, I added cyan light fixture and area light in this side of the wall as well. In post process and in Lumen, increase all these settings to maximum. Make sure that your GPU can or your PC can handle this. If you notice in here, we have our glass object fade in and fade it out. If we go closer and far away, this is caused by our ray tracing translucency. In post process, type translucency, and if we change it to raster, then this problem will not happen. But with this we might have some low quality translucency. So either we can change it to ray tracing and delete any object that pops out, or we can change our translucency setting to raster. Now let's move on to the render setting. Go into Windows, Cinematics and Movie Render Queue. Click on Render and select the sequence. Click here. I have already created high quality preset and I will walk you through it. I have selected PNG because PNG will give nicer quality than JPG. Then I have added anti-aliasing. In here, there is a spatial count and temporal count. Spatial count is used when you have high moving object. So increase this only when you have high moving object. Then temporal count is used to decrease the noise. So 1632 is a standard. If you have still noise, then go to 64 or 128 at maximum. Then click on this override anti-aliasing. After that, take this render warm-up frame and set the warm-up count to 48 and 48. This allows Unreal Engine to warm up before render starts. Then in camera, select frame close. This allows nice motion blur. Then in console variable, add all these console variable with these values. We have console variable for depth of field, tone mapper, screen percentage. These two are for ambient occlusion. Make sure to you add this because we set up ambient occlusion in our first part. Then we have motion blur and bloom and shadow quality. If you have confusion about what these commands does, then copy this, paste it in the command line, spacebar and add enter and click. go into output log, and there is a description of what the command does and its default values. Lastly, add game override. This allows Unreal Engine to ignore all the LOD and optimization settings, and it renders at maximum quality. Then in the output, add your resolution. I have added 4K. Click on this play range and add your range. Click here and select your render output path. Hit accept and render. That's it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. In the next one, we'll dive deeper into further steps to elevate the scene. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be packed with valuable insights. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you don't miss out when the future video comes. Also, if you have any question, feedback or suggestion, please share them in the comment and I'll address them in the upcoming videos. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.